Black Hills Startup is our presenter for today, and we have 4 speakers. Brian Rupert, Danny Mason, Bill Trevelyan. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I already messed it up. What was your last name again? Trevelyan. Okay, I got most of it. And then Lindsay Frankenfeld. Okay? All right, so Startup Weekend Black Hills is a unique experiential learning event where anyone with an idea has the opportunity to pitch that idea, form a team, and build their business in a weekend, all in a weekend. Now, in their 3rd year, the all-volunteer Startup Black Hills organized its first ever Startup Weekend in Western South Dakota the fall of 2016. Their next event will be March 22nd through the 24th of this year, and they want to expand their number of participants and in turn expand the number of new businesses.
Good morning, Rapid City. Everyone stand up, give the person next to you a big high five. Let's go. High five. Let's start it off. High fives. All right. Who here has been to a Startup Weekend before? Perfect. Nobody. Who's heard of Startup Weekend before? All right, good. My name is Brian Rupert. Most people call me Rupert, even my wife, which is kind of awkward. I live in Hill City. I'm a dad, an entrepreneur. I build websites, do logos, branding, that sort of thing. I'm a community builder, a firefighter, a serial home renovator, and a Startup Weekend organizer and facilitator. So I'm here today to talk to you about Startup Weekend Black Hills that we're organizing for March 22nd through 24th with my helpful organizing team partners of Lindsay, Danny, and Bill. So what is Startup Weekend? So the mission of Startup Weekend is to inspire change in the lives of entrepreneurs like you. So what will you do at a Startup Weekend? The more you put into the weekend, the more you'll get out of it. During the course of the weekend, you will potentially validate an idea, learn a new skill, meet a co-founder, and build a team, and launch a business. So this is perfect for anybody with any idea. It can be a business, a nonprofit, just a community project. It's for creatives, technical people, marketers, business hustlers, salespeople, attorneys. You know, we need a lot of law help on IP and stuff like that sometimes. So how does Startup Weekend work? So like I said, anybody with an idea brings their idea. You don't necessarily have to have an idea, but we like you to. And you have 60 seconds to pitch this idea on Friday night. And then everybody votes on all of the ideas. And so the 10 or 12 favorite ideas that people most want to work on over the course of the weekend get to move forward. And then you form teams around these ideas. So it puts you in an uncomfortable space sometimes of telling Bill, hey, I have to pitch him and tell him why he should be on my team and help me build my company and be my partner. And so it's very good. So you spend the weekend building that company. So, and then at the end of the weekend, you have 6 minutes to pitch your company in front of a panel of judges. So is this just some little thing that we do here in the Black Hills and it doesn't mean anything? No. 350,000 people have done a Startup Weekend in 12,000 cities, in 1,300 cities with 12,000 organizers like us. So I travel around and facilitate Startup Weekends. So the last one I did in Gillette in November, this is where all the Startup Weekends were happening in one weekend. 95 Startup Weekends in one weekend. It's pretty amazing. So what happens? Is it just a project where we're learning over the course of the weekend? No. 12% of the companies founded during Startup Weekend move forward past the weekend to try to become real companies. So what are some success stories? So we have Easy Taxi, was founded at Startup Weekend. It's like Uber, but for actual taxi drivers, so it's an app to combine them. They've raised over $77 million in venture capital. Rover is Airbnb for pets. They've raised $91.5 million in funding to date, and they do over $100 million a year in revenue. Those are real companies. So $410 million in funding has been acquired so far for Startup Weekend founded companies. I think that's pretty awesome. So how do we do this? We use the lean startup method to learn, build, and measure, and then constantly repeat this process so that we can find make sure that our product and our idea fits with what our customers want, and they'll actually give us money for it. Because that's like the important piece of a business, right? And we do this also by bringing in really awesome mentors to help guide you through the process. So we're building a company in one weekend. You can't do it alone. So we bring in local business people to really help these teams. And then we have awesome, awesome support from tons of sponsors. Always looking for more. Wink. So these are some of our awesome sponsors we've had in the past that have really supported us on our journey. So I'll wrap up by telling you about my first Startup Weekend story. A lot of people ask me, why do you spend so much time organizing Startup Weekends and facilitating them and traveling around the country and being away from your family? And I'll tell you why. It's exactly because of my family. So my wife decided that being a CPA was super boring and horrible, so she decided to become a dentist. So we moved to Iowa, where she was in dental school, and I was working remotely for a company doing web development. And long story short, I got laid off. I was supporting my family, and having a spouse in dental school is like being a single parent. She was gone from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. most nights. Dental school cost us $330,000 just for tuition. So I had to help pay our bills. So I got laid off from my job. So pretty bad, because finding a new job is tough when you have a bunch of baggage. I only want to work 30 hours a week. I only want to work from home. I need to be available for my kids. Like, that's tough. That's a lot of baggage you bring. So I just happened, as this was happening, I happened to hear about Startup Weekend. No idea what it was. So I signed up and I just went. And I showed up and I didn't know anybody. And I was like, and then this one guy I knew, I showed up and I just like puppy dogged him the whole time, because it was like, yes, somebody I know, and I just followed him around. Well, so we ate the food, did all the stuff, and it became time to pitch. And all these people were pitching ideas, and I was like, oh, I could pitch an idea. I have an idea. I'm an idea person. I'll pitch it. Well, I went up there, and you have 60 seconds, and it's like a hard clap off. And it was a train wreck. It was the most horrible pitch ever. Like, I hadn't pitched anything in like 12 years since I'd been in college. And it was horrible. Like, I was embarrassed. I'd probably had a couple more beers than maybe I should have to pitch, but that wasn't all of it. It was just I wasn't used to it. And it was horrible. No one voted for my idea, and I was not super bummed because I knew my pitch was horrible. So, but then what happened is all the ideas were pitched, and I was trying to figure out what team I wanted to be on, and this guy just comes up to me and he grabs my shirt. And he's like, you're a developer? Because I was wearing a name badge that said developer on it. And he drags me over, like literally drags me over. And he goes, you're on this team. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean I'm on this team? He's like, you're on this team. And I was like, well, what's the idea? So he told me the idea, and so I ended up joining the team. So, well, over the course of the weekend, so I had no idea what Startup Weekend was like. I was heads down, like building logos, designing a website, doing all this stuff, while the other two people, one guy was building our app, and two guys were like supposed to be doing the customer discovery and learning, like, was this a viable business? And then it gets to, and we were all kind of working in our own silos. We weren't really working together. And we get to Sunday, and it's like pitching at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, and at 3 we decide to start doing our pitch deck. Now when I go to, I've been to like 15 Startup Weekends now. Now I start my slide deck at like 10 a.m. on Sunday. So we started at like 3, not good. Well, long story short, our pitch went so over the time that our person who spent all weekend building the app never even got to show it. So his whole weekend was like for naught. But he was cool about it. We're still friends to this day. He didn't care that much, but I probably would have been pretty mad. But anyway, so the weekend ends, and throughout the course of the weekend, this guy that had dragged me across the room, we kind of started to hit it off, and it turns out he wasn't even on this team. He was one of the mentors for the weekend. He was a CEO of a company called Higher Learning Technologies, which the Thursday before this weekend had just gotten their first $1 million in seed funding for their company. They make test prep apps. And he was a mentor, but his little brother who was in high school was on this team, and so he was recruiting for his little brother, right? So the weekend ends, and he comes up to me and he says, he sends us an email, and he says, "Great job this weekend." We didn't do a great job. "If you decide to move forward with your idea," we weren't moving forward with our idea, "let me know how I can help." So a collaborative effort, not too different from 1 Million Cups. And so I emailed him back, and I said, "Hey, you know what I'm capable of. You have better connections than I do in this town. Can you just pass my information on to anybody who might need someone that can do what I do?" He emailed me immediately back and said, "You have a 9 a.m. meeting with our marketing director." So I went in the next morning, met with their marketing director, and for the next 3 years I did contract work for them. And that helped support my family and pay our bills while my wife was in dental school. Huge win for me. So the weekend, by all measures, was a complete failure. The idea was horrible, I didn't do it right, I didn't learn that much, but I made this one connection that was super important. And then I also built a ton of other relationships by going to 3 other startup weekends and being involved in 1 Million Cups there. I went to 1 Million Cups every Wednesday. I pitched at 1 Million Cups. We did a number of other events that we kind of do here. And I built some relationships that'll last the rest of my life. I have friends that are investors, mentors, technical people. I can usually get anybody in touch with just about anybody through this one weekend that I decided to go to on a whim. So that's my startup weekend experience, and I hope that you all would be willing to give Startup Weekend a chance to have something similar. So, in recap, Startup Weekend Black Hills, March 22nd to 24th. It's a fun weekend. We feed you awesome meals the whole weekend. You get unlimited, but be an adult, drinks, and a t-shirt, access to some awesome mentors, and unlimited learning. All for only $45. But if you use and that's the early bird rate, it'll go up to $65 in a couple weeks. But if you use the discount code 1MCLOVE, you get $10 off your ticket. So, thank you.
All right, well, let's give it up for Brian Rupert. I'm going to leave this mic here in case you guys want to answer questions too, so you can just grab it. So you guys can pass that, and then you're still live. So here's the question and answer portion of our segment of 1 Million Cups. And you can ask them anything. Ask them about how they came up with some of the ideas or how they became passionate about it. We have 3 other people as well that you haven't heard from yet that you can ask them some questions. They'll have some different insight as well. So any question is really fair game. So who is brave enough today for our first question? And I just want to remind you, when you ask a question, we want to know your name and your organization, because we're also still trying to put names with faces, and so we can continue to network amongst ourselves as well. So, who's brave enough for the first question?
Hi, I'm Brian Teachout with Exit Realty here in town. I'm an entrepreneur, and I gotta say, your excitement is what got me through that presentation. Because I can just tell that you just want us to come and make it work.
Thank you.
And with what you're doing, there are a lot of questions, but where is this function going to be? How do we get information about it?
Yeah. Sorry. East of 5th. We'll be at Evergreen Media and Harriet and Oak, and possibly the garage co-working space. We just don't quite have it locked down, so. Yep. Huh?
If you want more information, you can go to our website. Do you have that up there? And it's swblackhills.com.
And we're passing around a notebook. If you'd like to be on our list, we'll send you the link for registering for the event and getting more info from us as well.
So I have a question. I'm Leah with Nsight Partners. What stage of business is ideal for this? And where I'm going with this is, I know several people who are, they're halfway into a business plan, and they've got a name and a logo, so they're just started. I mean, is that an ideal client for you, or are you looking for people who are just getting started with the concept?
That's always the toughest thing, is because we always have people show up. Like the last startup weekend I facilitated was in Gillette, and someone showed me his patent that he had been granted and wanted to pitch this idea. I'm like, man, you're a little too far along. It has to be a brand new idea. Brand new. If you probably have a logo and a name and a website, it's probably too far along. So we get that question a lot, like, oh, I already have a business. Like, I don't want to start a new business. Like, I have more business than I want to deal with. But I still think there's huge value in going. The lean startup method will help existing business people take what they're working on in their business and really learn methods to rapidly iterate through different product or marketing ideas, defining your customer segments properly, and really speeding up the process of making decisions in your business. You'll also make connections with people who can help your business grow. Like, we work together on projects. I just worked on a project with Danny's company, and Lindsay and I worked on a project together last year. And so there's a ton of value for somebody to maybe just do it as an educational piece, but you may find your next best employee, or maybe a business partner or an investor to take your business to the next level. So I think a lot of times as South Dakotans or Midwesterners, we think maybe slightly too small. We're like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and it's gonna be great, and it's gonna be a job for me. But there's maybe the opportunity to take it 2 levels. Like I always say, okay, when we're at startup weekend, it's like, okay, here's your idea. Okay, what's the 10 times of that? And then what's the 10 times of that? Why make a $1 million company when you can make a 10 or a $100 million company?
Susan Geisel, I'm in transition. My question for you is, you mentioned you have mentors there. Do you have the mentors selected? And if so, what were the criteria that you select mentors on?
Yeah, great question. Our mentor, so we have a pretty clear strategy on mentors. We ask all of our mentors to come and be there the whole weekend and not be mentors and be participants. The mentors every mentor that we've actually convinced to do that, which is a pretty small subset, I'll be honest, has been so happy that they were there the whole weekend that they come back the next year and do it. And so my pitch, if somebody came up to me and said, hey, I would be a great mentor, or I want to be a mentor, I would be like, you'd be an even better participant. So sign up, be there all weekend, join a team, help lead from inside the new company or organization. Outside of that, we don't have a very strict criteria other than willingness to help, positive attitude, and some level, there's some basic experience that we like to have, but it's not very defined. More of a gut feeling.
Yeah, in the past, pretty much all the mentors have had some type of business experience, either entrepreneurial or they've
Grab your mic.
climbed the ranks. I've never been told to be louder before. Thank you. How's this? Better?
Yes.
I was going to say, historically, all of our mentors have had some type of experience in the business world. They've either been entrepreneurs or had entrepreneurial ventures, or they've climbed the ranks within a business. We have a diverse group. Some are creatives, some come more from strictly business, some are financial. So even if you are one of the participants, you get a well-rounded perspective of how to make your idea better, not just from a product or technical, but also a marketing and sales, or a financial, or attorney, right? What do I need to do for IP? So it's a pretty diverse group of people that we look for as well.
And historically, we set up our mentors, some of them to come in on Saturday and some to come in on Sunday, and then all of the Saturday mentors just show up again on Sunday, and then we have way too many. So it's a good problem to have, but everyone seems to like it.
Brian, teach out again. Questions together. One is, if you have an idea for something, how much of it should you try to bring so that you have a better presentation, you don't take your time like you did? And the other is, how is your idea protected?
That's two good questions. Well-researched is always better. So when you pitch, you have 60 seconds. It's a hard clap off. You can't have slides, but you could have props to help demonstrate whatever. But yeah, for me, so I travel to other communities and facilitate, and part of that is being the bad guy and telling people that their idea is too far along. And my criteria is generally, when you form, are you looking for free work? Are you looking for these students and these developers or business people to give you free progress on your business, or are you bringing them in as equal partners? If you're bringing everyone in as an equal partner and your idea is maybe a little over the line as far along, then I'm generally cool with it. But if you're trying to just get some free web development or logo work, then I'm not into it. As far as protecting ideas, there's nothing to protect your idea other than the hard work it takes to actually implement an idea. There's not many original ideas anymore. I mean, you may think it's the most awesome, best idea in the whole world, but chances are it's already out there and someone's already working on it. And the value is in the hard work and the implementation of the idea. I mean, so 4 of the top richest people in the United States, Bill Gates, Microsoft, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, and one of the founders of Google. Google was not the first search engine. Facebook was not the first social network. Amazon was not the first online store. And Microsoft were not the first people to build computers. So they didn't have original ideas, and they're the richest people. So we don't have anything in place to protect these ideas, but other than it's hard to do the work. Does that answer you? And I have, some people do have some IP issues, and so we can usually work around like the really detailed pieces. But those teams, I've been to a startup weekend where a team worked in private and they didn't pitch at the end, but they benefited from the mentors that were there. I wasn't super fond of it, but they were included and it was cool, I guess.
The only other thing I would add to that is you saw the slide, 1,300 cities, 12,000 organizers, however many thousand events. Have not run into that issue. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be such a global phenomenon, repeatable with 100 in a weekend if people were taking other people's ideas, whether they go on to become Amazon or not. So if that allays any fears there as well.
And I have an example pitch, which is actually a pretty good company or a pretty good business idea. And I pitched it like 10 times or 15 times, and no one's implemented it yet. So it means it's either not that good of an idea, or really no one's going to work on it. So.
Right, I have a question. Melanie Torno with Torno Mediation and Mental Health Services. How many finalists do you select at the end, and what is the follow-up? Like with the team that they're working on, do they fall off? Are the mentors assigned to them? What does that look like?
There, okay. So there isn't an official follow-up, but every startup weekend team that I've participated with, I'm still in touch with all of those, the group members. So it's really up to each individual how much you want to continue. If you want to keep working on your idea, you can, or if you end up deciding not to, you might still stay in touch and stay friends with those people or make business connections.
Also, when we do the judging at the end and select the top 3 recipients, the prizes are designed to help propel your business forward. We've had co-working space in the past. We've had marketing help. We've had mentorship. So they're not, some of it's swag too, but a lot of it is how can we help you after the weekend, keep the momentum going and have the resources to be successful.
Stevens with South Dakota State University. Is this something where our students would benefit, especially like our entrepreneurs students, to come to something like this?
Absolutely, yeah. We always have groups of students from School of Mines and Becket State University, and it's a great way to connect students with
the rest of the world, because any age is welcome, and it's a great learning opportunity for them.
Do you know Jeff from Black Hills State? He requires his students to come to it some semesters. So yeah, it's we've had students say, this is what we did all last semester, and we're doing it in 2.5 days. And so it's that rapid piece of it really helps you break down barriers and really get to like, what's the meat of this and what's important. You can't mess around with spending 12 hours coming up with a business name. You have like 12 minutes. And I name a lot of businesses, so I know how hard it is. So.
The other thing that's really nice, I think, for students is it's not theoretical. So when we say find customers, we mean literally you call people you know and see if they will pay for your idea. So it's very much real-world implementation with all the theory they're learning in their classes. And then on the Minds end, it's great because you have a lot of technical people. But a couple years out of there, and you might need business acumen. How do I, read a P&L? How do I think about profitability? So it's very, very helpful, not only to connect them with future employers, but give them a structure where they can apply classroom learning to real-world situations with real-world customers.
Yeah, we kick people out of the building, like nearly literally, in the morning to go talk to customers. So.
One more thing on the follow-up question that you asked, was it last year, the team that won, then they presented at the Innovation Expo. So it is up to each team and individual, but we definitely support and promote them and as they want.
So Leah, Braun, again, I have another question. Brian, one of your slides said 12% of participants go on to actually be a successful business. I can't help but think about the other 88%. Do you have any data on like what happens to them, or why did their idea not take off, or anything about that?
Yeah, I don't know that I have data, but I can tell you from the number of startup weekends I've been to that part of it is through the course of the weekend you invalidate the idea. You're like, oh, this is a great idea, but no one will pay me money for it. Like I've done that 2 or 3 times where it's like, yep, everybody told us, this is great, I would love to have this. Okay, how much will you pay? Oh, well, $5 a month? And it's like, well, it costs us $50 to make it or whatever. And so that would be one reason, and sometimes team dynamics. Like they say one statistic is 65% of businesses fail because of problems with the founders, team dynamics. So this is a good way to really figure out what type of person you are and who you work well with. I've learned a lot about that, about myself. So I'm kind of a bulldozer sometimes. So.
It's also a chance to decide for yourself. So you maybe have this idea, you've been thinking about it for years, it's just in your head. Then you go to startup weekend, you work with other people, you do some validation, and then you realize, or maybe even continue on. And I did that with Tamora. We had a project. After a couple of months, we both just decided it wasn't what we wanted to do.
Right.
So it helps you kind of get that. Then you stop wasting time having it in your head.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point of the idea in your head for years. Has anybody had like that awesome business idea just kind of going around? Well, one complaint we get about Startup Weekend is it's all weekend. Like, oh, I can't take time away from my family and church and all of the basketball and all the things we have going. And so my question would be, if you've had this idea rolling around in your head forever and you can't put one weekend into testing it, why even bother having the idea? Maybe just move on now.
Botsky, and I have been laid off from my job, and so I'm looking at starting a new business. No name, no logo yet. Working on that too.
My people!
I have a 16-year-old son, and I'm wondering, does your weekend accommodate sitting into something like this, where he and I can sit in together, but we don't necessarily pitch an idea, but go through the process?
Absolutely. There's no requirement that you pitch, but if you're going to come there, join it. There's no like sitting on the sidelines, but join a team, be a part of a team. My son is 13 now, and he pitched 2 years ago when he was 11. It was pretty good, and his idea actually got voted to go through, but he was like, I can't be here all weekend, so we took it down. And so yeah, so we do have, and then the team that won our last startup weekend was three siblings, that the oldest one was I think 13. It was like a 13, 11, and 9-year-old, and they had 2 Mines student and a Black Hill State student also on their team, and they won. It was like an anti-bullying app, and so it was pretty cool. And they, yeah, so I don't know, I don't think they're still working on it because the kids ended up moving, but yeah. So yeah, absolutely come be a part of it. There's no requirement to pitch because, you know, I've only worked on the idea, I pitched one startup weekend ever, so being part of the team is the important part in working through an idea. So we'd love to have you there.
Second question to that. So when you go on your website and you look at the options for tickets, what category does that fall into?
Get a student ticket for him, because you said it was son, right? Yeah, get a student ticket for him, use the 1 million cups discount code, so then it'll be even $10 less for him. And then we use the terms developer, designer, and hustler. Hustler is like the business person, that sort of thing. So if you're not a designer or a developer, pick that one. And then we call them early bird or early nerd. I can't remember. Early nerd. Yeah. So
I have another question. Melanie Torno again. Can you talk a little bit about, like, if I would go, I'm not interested in pitching, I already have a business entrepreneur, but I love to give back in that way and help other businesses. So can you talk a little bit about some of the relationships that are built within other people that just go to help, or even people that are pitching that might, and maybe you have a few success stories of relationships that were built on a startup weekend and how they've continued on?
yeah, I wish Bill was still here. Bill's a student at Mines, and he's come to like every startup weekend we've had. He's traveled all around. He's traveled to regional startup weekends, and he pitches in the student pitch competitions, and he's developed a team of mentors and advisors to surround him for any of his ideas moving forward. And he started generating those through School of Mines and through Startup Weekend. And so that would be one area.
Also, we all met through Startup Weekend.
Yeah, we all drove to Iowa for a startup weekend because one of the requirements to be an organizer is that you have been to one, and those two hadn't been to one, right?
Well, I met you in Sioux Falls.
Oh yeah, it was funny, we both lived here. I live in Hill City, she lives in Rapid. We met at Startup Weekend Sioux Falls, and we were staying in a brother and sister's house. So we had like common friends, but we didn't know, so it was kind of funny.
Yeah, just that we had both driven 6 hours to go to a startup weekend. It's like, we gotta do this in Black Hills.
Yeah, and then we all drove to Iowa together, and it was pretty funny. Danny got accused of being Lindsay and I's daughter at a McDonald's. It was pretty funny. Here, give this food to your mom.
Yeah.
Roll with it. Take it.
Yeah, I know.
Go for the free food.
Yeah, so good, made mom and dad pay. Yeah, and like Brian mentioned, you know, we all contract out with each other. So I work for B9 Creations. I hire him to do web development. Those two have worked together on a project. We both worked with another person that was a sponsor for Startup Weekend on their contract work. So all of it has paid out in real dollars and cents, whether you're a student looking for a bunch of mentors, running your own business, trying to find connections, or just already have your business and are working with each other to grow it.
Mike Amy, Gaming Sound in Rapid City. My question is this mainly high-tech, low-tech, or just kind of a potluck type of thing?
That's a great question. Total potluck. Everything from food trucks we've had pitched to really technical, intricate things. So the Startup Weekend we had last time, some of the ideas were an anti-bullying app, a nonprofit to help put kids and Mines students together to help facilitate learning.
There was one where it was like encouraging scholarships for kids that wanted to attend like musical camps, things like that. There was a drink that was a couple years ago, but a drink mixer with a real prototype from an engineering team. So it is a grab bag.
Yeah, it mixed it automatically, like they had reservoirs for different liquors and mixers, and you would pick your drink and it would automatically mix them. And it kind of worked. By the end of the weekend, it was pretty awesome. And then one cool thing about that is one of our judges thought that was so awesome that they built that he put forth another $250 to reimburse them for their cost for buying the materials for their prototyping. So we like try to lower that risk make it easier for people to do that stuff. So.
Back to the question, kind of goes with what Leah said. I'll use the bullying app as an idea. I understand that going into this, you don't know whose ideas are going to be voted on, but looking at the timing or the fruition or the productivity after the weekend, just using the bullying app as an application, it seems like if there would have been some pre-ice that you definitely wanted to pursue, you could maybe have resources there that are able to help with that. Like, you can imagine there are a lot of things involved with bullying, and a lot of things involved with developing apps. And to maybe have resources, mentors that are specifically potentially there for these certain ideas that you see the ideas ahead of time, and then if you do, is there a way to say, you know what, these are ideas that we do want to pursue because we know that this could be what?
No, absolutely. That's a great point. So we do, like I think Danny said, we do try to get a wide breadth of mentors in a lot of those different areas. And like I had said earlier, I have connections in a huge wide array of places from all the cities I've been to. And I personally call 3 to 5 people every startup weekend to help those teams when I know somebody is a good mentor. And we do check-ins every 3 or 4 hours through the whole weekend and say, what do you need? Who do you need to talk to? Because when you have a group of 60 or 80 people, chances are someone knows someone or someone knows someone that knows someone that can help with that. And so it's very collaborative in that regard. So I think that addresses that concern. But I do agree that if somebody knew they were going to pitch and they wanted a certain person there, it would be awesome if they had the ability to say, I need mentorship in this area. But usually we can find them.
I think we'd be open to that. But the way that it's set up is you can pitch an idea that you come up with in the moment, which we both did
we've
that
all done that.
Yeah.
So it's also, we don't want it to be required that you would have the idea and have been thinking about it for a long time. It's open to coming up with it and brainstorming.
And pretty much every startup weekend we get a team of, it's usually students that have an idea they've been working on in class and they want to keep working on it. And so sometimes they leave, sometimes they stay.
Yeah, I think if someone came up to us and asked, we would try to find resources beforehand.
Yeah, and so there's a company called Techstars which owns the Startup Weekend brand, and so they kind of dictate some of these formatting things. It's not just us being like, this is what we say. So we are a little bit limited in some decisions, but we freelance whatever we can to accommodate our attendees.
I actually thought of one more quick question. What's your draw? Like how far of a radius do you get people from? Because if I lived in, say, Buffalo Gap, is this my closest opportunity?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we had 8 people from Cedar Rapids the first year, and they all stayed in my duplex together. So we try to accommodate and help make sure people have places to stay possible.
But we've had students from Sheridan and Gillette and Black Hill State. I would say a reasonable drive is probably our area. But yeah, and there's startup weekends in Sioux Falls and Brookings and Gillette and Sheridan and Colorado, Nebraska. So there are other startup weekend opportunities if the weekend doesn't work, if this particular weekend doesn't work for people, but yeah.
The only thing I'd add to that is it intentionally doesn't say Startup Weekend Rapid City up there. It's not accidental. So when we were coming up with what we want to do, we wanted it representative of the Black Hills. We've had it in Spearfish. We've alternated between Spearfish and Rapid City to be accommodating, to be inclusive, and to draw people from a region so they felt like they had an opportunity to experience this.
Okay. Okay, well, our last question that we always ask is we have presenters come up with a big ask. And so what can we do as a 1 Million Cups community to help support you in your weekend startup?
Share it. Participate. Let's sign up today. Give us money. Right? That's like the standard answer that every business should say when they're up here, right?
We really want people to know about it, so anyone who would be interested in it can go. And we've had a good turnout, but we also know that it's our own circle of people, so we just want to broaden that circle.
And then the last thing is we have a special ticket called Friday and Sunday night pitches. If you can't make the whole weekend because of scheduling issues, it's a really fun ticket where you get the food and the drinks on Friday night. Friday night's the big exciting event where all the cool ice-breaking stuff and the original pitches are happening, and then Sundays when the final pitches are happening. And so you can really see where these businesses have come from this 60-second idea to a weekend of work. So I don't recommend that for people who could do it and they're just looking for a way out, but that's there, and we try to make a big deal out of that ticket too. So please come for the whole weekend.
How many people come? How many get?
We had 60 the first year, 67.
Yeah, probably between 60 and 100 for Friday, and Sunday, and between probably 50 to 70, somewhere in there, that stayed the whole weekend and did the pitches and worked on the companies.
And then there's usually 10 mentors and organizers kind of roaming around. So there's a pretty good energy, and we put everyone in one room so everyone's together and it's exciting.
Okay, well, let's give it up for them.